Σεβασμιότατε, σεβαστοί πατέρες, κυρίες και κύριοι, Χριστός ανέβη.
Dear fathers, the Christ has risen.
Οι αντιλήψεις που κυριαρχούν
We know that the perceptions prevailing in a society are influenced by the mentality in it. So in our environment, where a big number of our fellow citizens choose to communicate through the internet channels, the ways of social phenomena expression are colored by their choices. It is also to be expected that the ecclesiastical space does not have very quick reflexes to the changes of the times. It is also a reality that what characterizes the trends in the ecclesiastical space on changes in society before they are in fact adopted, there is a lot of reservation and there is a lot of suspicion regarding them. One of the reasons for this is virtuality, the non-realistic basis of relations developing through the internet. This, of course, is to be expected. However, we need to think the following. In many cases, because of human weaknesses, there are expressions of superficiality and virtuality in real time and space. Because sincerity, honesty, and mutual understanding do not prevail. Also, there are people who are more introvert and have difficulties communicating with the others. Therefore, such people feel more at ease communicating through the internet and other such networks. Third, the internet, which comparatively is very young, only a few decades old, the internet tends to more real choices, where the Internet of Things, it is called, where engines connect between them, and the Internet will make it possible for clever or for in smart systems communicating through the cyberspace. Of course, this is material for concern which is shared by government agencies, by the EU, and so on. Still, and this is something that we need to retain here, is that the reservations that expressed by the Orthodox Church are shared by other religions as well. In fact, this penetration of the digital media in human life concern the Jews and the conservative Muslims and Christians alike. There is a theological depth in this assessment, but I will not dwell into remarks of this type. Because there is a paradox here. Even those who are against the dialogue of religions, in reality, are very alike with those they don't want to converse with. Hope, however, however, is the same for everybody. And the joy of resurrection is hiding in the shadow of phobias that torment our age. One way or another, however, the world transcends fears. And before we know how to act, we need to know what the field of our action is going to look like. In respect to the internet, it would be useful to recognize that social networking in its digital form cannot be manipulated, and therefore it cannot be easily understood either. It would be easier to accept that networking is in our DNA, that we are programmed to express ourselves in social networks, not necessarily digital ones. And therefore, in a time of an explosion of these media, it is only to be expected that people will solicit this way of communicating with others. It is sometimes said that during the exams in a British university for the position of a professor of theology, the question given to the candidates was the following. Somebody tells you, I have 2 minutes to catch a bus. Can you please explain to me what resurrection is within these 2 minutes? The right answer was, if you really want to find out about the resurrection, you must be ready to miss the bus. When this was referred to the Bishop of Canterbury, that is the head of the Anglican Church, he remained reserved and pensive. After some thought, he said, I would have followed him on the bus in order to explain to him what resurrection is all about. So if sacrifice and the cross is the real expression of the presence of Christians in the world, this little anecdote has a lot to say about our presence in the world and the meaning of the internet in general. It tells us that we need to forget about our comfort zone. We have to get out of our comfort zone and go looking for those we want to attract. We need to seek out the person in the path that he has chosen, and not to try to attract him from far away, expecting him to understand things as we do. The life of Christ on this earth, who went after the lost sheep, explains what we want to say. On a secondary level of understanding, this narrative says something else as well, that we need to approach the other in the right ethos. Unfortunately, our performance, the Orthodox performance in this respect, is rather disappointing. Only a few decades ago, as far as Greece is concerned, the presence of the ecclesiastical discourse in public dialogue was extremely restricted. It was only on the anniversary when we heard the church. Thankfully, this changed over the years, and now the discourse of the church is more heard. The quality of it, however, is not easily understood. There is a lot of resentment and enmity. This is the discourse of the Orthodox Church in Greece. They consider that everything is allowed, deviations from what needs to be done, thus really harming the evangelical ethics. Everybody knows the images that have come to us from the internet Jerusalem. A few years ago, a baptism took place in Mount Athos. Was in fact, a refugee from Asia. There were photographs posted on a web page and people could comment. One would expect that in this case there would be expression of satisfaction and joy for the entrance of this brother in the ecclesiastical family. Instead of this, however, comments were full of prosecutors' queries and scrutinies. Some were asking for the duration of the catechesis and the language of it, whereas somebody else was worrying about the reasonableness of this sacrament having taken place, as they said, they claimed it was very possible that the newly christened one would certainly go back to his old religion. I was reminded of this, of the Pharisees who never enjoyed or rejoiced in the healing of the brother who was healed by Christ, but they always insisted on observing the law. So if we were to be be observers and objective observers of all these phenomena, we must recognize that this is the image of a big part of the flock. Though what they experience, their insecurities, the deviations from the ecclesiastical morale or ethos are very clearly depicted in these behaviors. On an institutional level, very few things could happen. The administrative structures of our church and also the social liberalization do not allow for much to happen. However, there are recommendations, as the one issued in January by the Holy Synod of the Church of Greece, and also the liturgy of, but also the function of formal, official ecclesiastical web pages combining critique and living utterance of the ecclesiastical discourse and moderation or temperance may have a very beneficial effect on the public sphere. We think that when the pulpits, catechesis, meetings on the level of the parish and so on also have a social dimension. They are not just individual. In these gatherings, we need to see in the other the person, the face of our Lord, and to put up more or less with them and to accept the different perceptions or habits. Once this is done, things will begin to change. If we stop just seeking the sin in order to punish it, if we start approaching these sinners as sinners and not as sinless, then our look, our speech, and our computers will become sweeter. If we understand and accept that the throne of the Lord is his cross, then we shall not find fault with anybody, and in the internet will also become a means of mercy.